recently I have been studying Coptic using word lists and playing Assassin's Creed Origins at the same time, simply because it's not too difficult for me to do both at the same time, to look at the lists and to play, especially because I don't often play it as one would a normal game, but I like to just walk around and I suppose take in the atmosphere of ancient Egypt. It's part of the reason why I don't think I'll ever go to Egypt, is because I don't want to go to the real world Egypt, which is filled with taxis and pollution and all of the other bits and pieces of everyday modern life. I want to, I suppose, keep the romanticized image of it in my head, just like one would if one were reading Lord of the Rings or something, or even when one is reading Sherlock Holmes, the image of horse drawn carriages and what do they call them? Hansoms, riding along the cobblestone streets of London is probably not realistic, but it's kind of romantic in its own way. And I suppose sometimes I like to indulge in that romance, even if I know that it's not real. And going to those places, so I've been to London before, but going to those places would kind of, I don't know, it feels like it would be just a kind of letdown. London wasn't entirely a letdown, actually, but I definitely felt like it was very modern in comparison to the sort of image in my head of what London would be like, which is why I suppose I absolutely adored going to Scotland and living in Scotland, because it still embodied a lot of that sort of 1800s, early 1900s architecture and stuff. But anyway, getting back to the list, I have been going through all of the things that I see in the game and writing them down and looking for the words that correspond with them in the Coptic dictionary. Now, some words actually do not show up. For example, there's no word for hippopotamus, which is kind of sad. They do seem to use maybe the the ancient Greek version of it. I try to avoid the Greek words where I can, just because, not because I hate Greek words. If I have to use a loan word, that's fine. But because the material itself is so based in religious stuff, there's a tendency to kind of grab too much of the Greek vocabulary to the point where you can read a whole sentence and it's basically just Greek with a little bit of Coptic grammar. And so I want to get more towards the everyday language. And that's the thing, like, there would have been a lot of people using Greek words in everyday language. So I'm not saying that that didn't exist, but it's like the difference you get, for example, having learnt Japanese and knowing the everyday Japanese words that people use versus the words that are used in newspapers or print or even just on the news when you're watching television. There's a huge difference between the vocabulary. You've got a lot of Chinese words that are essentially just two kanji put together, and they would be things like let's see, I suppose kinshi, and I'm trying to think now. I can't think. I'm in Coptic mode. This is one of the problems. I can't switch very easily from language to language. I need to prime my brain before doing it. Uh, let's see. Jotai, for example, things like that. Tokai, those sorts of words where it's two kanji put together. And then you have native Japanese words, for example, I suppose maybe sakana. I'm not sure. Mizu. So that sounds like it would be the two, but it's not, because the Chinese reading for mizu would be sui, which comes or is related to the word shui, which is the Chinese word for water. And So you can see that there's a big difference. You use Chinese words in more, I suppose, polite conversation. You would use them in writing, etc. And a lot of sort of medical things um, use kanji rather than using Japanese native words. So my assumption is that Coptic does the same thing. It uses a lot of, uh, I guess, in the spiritual writings and stuff like that, ancient Greek, and then Coptic words are kept for other things, I suppose, like everyday stuff. And I think that's reflected in the different types of things that have been found with Coptic on them. For example, everyday letters might have less of the Greek, but I'm not entirely sure. Anyway, going through the list of words that I have found, I've not found a word for hippo. I suppose you could say hito mo, so horse of the water, but I don't know. Ibis is pahiboy, he pahiboy, pahiboy. A heron is apparently be'el-kyop, be'el-kyop. Now, I have kind of changed my pronunciation a little, where I used to say chob, but I've actually gone for kyop because reading the literature a little bit more recently, I have seen that there is a kind of debate and that the cho moves towards the more modern pronunciation, whereas kya is meant to be more related to the original pronunciation. So I've just shifted towards that. I don't think it makes that much of a difference, really, but I don't know, for the sake of trying to stick with what was deemed to be appropriate, I've gone with that. I've also noticed that I put emphasis on the wrong point with the double letters. It should be, rather than it should be apparently. So I've tried to fix that as well. And the J sound, I've tried to make it a bit more of a j sound rather than just a simple j. I think that's correct. I might be wrong there though, but that's life, I suppose. So the next word is star, which is persiu, persiu, persiu. So I like stars. I don't know which of these words have plural forms. That's probably the next part to sort out. I'm going to try and find a list of words that have plural forms because not all of them do. I think a lot of the plural forms had fallen away. So anyway, continuing, moon is pa-ot, pa-ot, apparently. I kind of like that sound, ot, if it's correct. Ot, ot. The sky is tepe, tepe. The lion is pamui, pamui. And the lioness is tamui, tamui. Dog is pu'uhor, pu'uhor. Owl is pabom, pabom. Crow is pu'abok, pu'abok. Dove or pigeon, now this one's kind of hard. I think it's te kyora-ompe, kyora-ompe, maybe, kyora-ompe. So it's kind of kyora-umpe, kyora-umpe, kyora-umpe. Bat is also kind of difficult. Te kinkilo, kinkilo, maybe, kinkilo. In the pronunciation before, I would have said chinchilo, chinchilo, but I've gone with kinkilo, kinkilo. They also say gingilo, I think, but I'm not entirely sure. I do know that I think it's, I can't remember his name. Some clever fella. He said kya, so I'm just going with kya for now. A scorpion is meant to be te what he, what he, te what he, te what he. So scorpion, te what he. Donkey is to your, to your. Now, I could not find a word for flamingo. They might have said something like petorsh, petorsh, which means the one which is red. But it by itself is pet tortoise. That is the per. I'm not entirely sure how they would have said ooh, unless they would have said something like uhalet, pet tortoise or something like that. So oh no, et tortoise maybe something, or etif tortoise, something like that. I'm not entirely sure. So flamingo is another word that was a bit difficult to find a word for. There is one for Bohairic, but not for Sahidic, from what I can see. So a papyrus plant, which was really important in ancient Egypt, as well as the fact that it looks beautiful, is terbain. Terbain. So it seems to be all together in one thing. But that's not even the craziest cluster of consonants that I found. But papyrus plant, terbain. Cloud is to kiepe. Roof is said to be to genepor. I don't know if this is a Greek loan or a Coptic native word, but it doesn't matter. So to genepor. A fissure is said to be peworhe. So you see, we had before, if I can find it, we had, where'd it go? We had what he, which is scorpion, and you've got warhe, which is fissure. A ladder, a step, or a stair is said to be betorter. Smoke or mist is said to be, here we go, this is a crazy cluster. Krumtse. I don't know how you meant to say it. Maybe krumtses. Maybe Kurumtus. Because obviously there would have to be some sort of sound in between. You can't just go like it doesn't work. So it'd have to be something like Kurumtus, maybe. Storm or darkness is Pekyosum. And rain is said to be Bahol.